In the ring, he was a machine of prehistoric efficiency, a king who ruled the middleweight division for 7 years with an iron chin and a stare that could freeze a heart. To the world, he was Escopeta, the shotgun, a nickname earned for a right hand that didn't just punch, it punctured. As of 2024, BoxRec ranks him as the third greatest pound-for-pound boxer of all time, behind only the most untouchable names in history. But outside the ring, he was something else entirely. Carlos Monzon's life is a haunting paradox, a man who achieved perfection inside the ropes, while his soul was being devoured by the same fury that made him great. Carlos Monzón was born in 1942 into a world that didn't want him. In the slums of Santa Fe, Argentina, hunger wasn't an occasional visitor, it was a roommate. He was one of 12 children. To survive, he shined shoes and fought in the streets for scraps. The legend says he was arrested over 100 times as a youth. Whether that number is fact or folklore, the reality was clear. Monzón was a career delinquent before he was a career athlete. Violence wasn't a choice, it was his native tongue. Then boxing found him, or rather, Amilcar Brusa found the rage inside him and gave it a blueprint. Brusa taught the street brawler how to wait. He turned the chaos into a cold, technical predator. Monzón wasn't flashy, he didn't dance. He was a minimalist. His style was built on a terrifyingly high ring IQ. He fought tall, using his jab like a surveyor's tool to measure the distance for his right hand. In 1970, he shocked the world by dismantling Nino Benvenuti in Rome. It was the beginning of a monarchy. For 7 years, he held the undisputed world middleweight championship. He defended that title 14 times against 11 different legends. Griffith, Napoles, Valdez, all fell. By 1972, he was the Fighter of the Year. By 1990, an International Boxing Hall of Famer, he was a god in Argentina. But while he perfected control inside the ropes, outside the ropes, the man was unraveling. Monzón became a titan of the jet set. He was a movie star, a national symbol, a man women adored and men feared. But fame is a poor bandage for childhood trauma. The shotgun wasn't just for the ring. His jealousy was pathological. His drinking was heavy. The same hands that earned him a number 3 all-time ranking were being used to assault strangers in bars and abuse his partners behind closed doors. The world saw the champion. The people in his life saw the rage. At the time, his violence was a public secret, widely reported, but widely ignored because he was a national hero. In 1977, Carlos Monzón did something few legends ever manage. He walked away at the absolute top. He retired as the undisputed champion, still dominant, still feared, and never defeated for his title. But for a man like Monzón, the ring wasn't just a job. It was a cage that kept his demons in check. Without the structure of the ring to absorb his aggression, the chaos grew louder. The iron shadow began to consume the man. His relationships deteriorated, his drinking escalated, and the macho persona, once a marketing tool, became a daily reality for those around him. By 1988, the storm he had managed to contain for 15 rounds at a time finally reached the breaking point. On February 14, 1988, 11 years after his final bell, in a seaside home in Mar del Plata, Monzón argued violently with his partner, Alicia Muñiz. Witnesses reported hearing screams that no referee could stop. Moments later, Alicia fell from a second-story balcony. He followed her down, later claiming it was an accident. The investigation concluded that Monzón had beaten and strangled her before the fall. The man who defended his title 14 times was now defending himself in a court of law. He was convicted of homicide and sentenced to 11 years in prison. For Argentina, the national myth was shattered. The icon had been replaced by the convict. The myth of the macho was shattered. For many, it was the fall of an idol. For Alicia's family, it was a tragedy that could never be repaired. They say a man often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. In January of 1995, Carlos Monzón was a man caught between two worlds, permitted to breathe the air of freedom by day, but tethered to a prison cell by night. As the sun dipped low over the Santa Fe plains, the champion began his final sprint against the clock, racing to beat a curfew that waited for no one. The hands that had dismantled kings now gripped a steering wheel with the same frantic energy they once used in the streets. There was no referee to slow the pace, no bell to save him from the coming turn. At high speed, the car left the earth, rolling into the dust of the land that had birthed him. In an instant, the man who had survived 100 street fights and 14 world title defenses, the man who could not be floored by the greatest warriors of his age, was finally brought to his knees by the one enemy he could never outrun, himself. A violent life had demanded a violent punctuation mark. The iron shadow had finally caught up. So, how does history hold the name Carlos Monzón? On the scales of sport, his weight is undeniable. An undisputed king for 7 years, 14 defenses against the finest of a golden era. A Hall of Fame career that stands today as the third greatest ever recorded. He was the Escopeta, a masterpiece of precision and ring IQ. But a legacy is more than a record. Behind the icons and the accolades lies a darker truth. Monzón is a reminder that a man can conquer the world and still be a prisoner to his own rage. That greatness in the light does not excuse the cruelty in the shadows. He remains boxing's most terrifying paradox, a legend forged in the ring and a monster carved by his own hands. Carlos Monzón, champion, icon, convict.